chair and vice chair, but election of chair and vice chair is the first item. So we'll deal with election of chair first. Do we have any nominations for chair, please? Councillor Young.
I nominate Williams as chair, and then following the previous chair.
Lovely. Councillor Hodgson.
Yeah, I'd like to second that. It's actually going to nominate you, but I'll second it instead.
Councillor Williams, I think I know the answer. Do you accept the nomination? Yes. Do we have any other nominations for chairperson? All in favour of Councillor Williams being chair of the committee, please raise your hand. That's unanimously passed. Congratulations. Would you like me to continue with vice chair? Yeah. Okay, if we deal with election of vice chair, so the vice chair must be the Devon councillor, as according to the terms of reference. So, do we have a nomination for vice chair, please? That's fine. So, Councillor Brazil is nominated. Councillor Hodgson, do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Williams, do you accept the nomination, Councillor Hodgson? Yes. Any other nominations? All in favour of Councillor Hodgson being vice chair? That's passed. Congratulations.
Right, so we go to chair's announcements. Just wait for Jackie to come and sit down. So it's Anne Mays and not Ray Hodgson, so it's going to be the standards committee. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I'd like to welcome Anne Mays from the Council Standards Committee, who's attending remotely to monitor compliance with the Council's ethical governance framework. Just seeing she's there. Are you there, Anne?
I can see Anne has joined the meeting.
Okay, welcome to Anne. And also, please also be reminded that this meeting is being live streamed, and so please use the microphones on the tables, speaking directly into them to ensure those attending remotely can hear the discussion that's going on. Thank you. I think before we start with the business of the day, I can see quite a few new faces, so it might be helpful if we introduce ourselves to other members of the committee. So I think we'll start to my left.
Hello, I'm Fred Whitehouse, Democratic Services Officer, Clerk to the committee.
I'm Councillor Jeff Young. I'm East Devon District Councillor, portfolio holder for Environment Operations.
Hello, I'm Bobby Hughes. I'm just here to do a presentation today. I'm part of the waste team at Devon County.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm an intern for the waste management team, and I'm just here to have a listen.
Hello, I'm Michael Fife Cook, Councillor at Devon County Council, Group Leader of Reform. Thank you.
Dale Cropper, Senior Waste Officer for South Hams and West Devon Councils.
Hello, Jeff Moody, West Devon Borough Council, portfolio holder for waste recycling and customer service. Good combination.
Yeah, Julian Brazil. I am a county councillor, but I'm here representing South Hams District Council, where I'm also a councillor, and I'm part of the waste team at South Hams.
Apparently we're sharing. Good afternoon, Peter Williams, Teignbridge District Council, portfolio holder for Waste and Environment.
Hi, Chris Brains, Head of Environmental Services at Teambridge District Council.
Hello, Annette Dentith, Principal Waste Manager at Devon County Council.
Hello, Wendy Barrett, County Waste Manager at Devon County Council. Jackie Hodgson, Cabinet Member, Portfolio of Climate Change, Biodiversity and Public Transport, Devon County Council. And just since it's relevant, on South Hams District Council on the executive, I have the portfolio for community composting.
And I'm Councillor Ruth Williams from Exeter City Council, portfolio holder for city management. So thank you very much for that. We now go on to apologies for absence. Have you had any?
I've received no apologies, but we do have two members, that's Councillors Wright and Billings, who are attending remotely behind the room, but no formal apologies.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Members should declare interest at the appropriate time, either now or when we reach the item. Have we got any now? No, thank you. Minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of February for signing as a correct record. So that's down to those of us that were there.
So I haven't included them in the agenda pack, but they're available online and have been previously circulated.
We just check who was there from. So that was
the
Roger's not here. I was there.
Yeah,
Julian.
the membership of the committee
Yeah.
is quite consistent. So most people here were there. A couple of exceptions.
So there was me, Julian, Jeff Young, and who's that?
Oh, that's Chris Leathers. He's not here, but
And Roger
councillors,
Craig.
yeah, Councillor Billings and Councillor Wright, who are here remotely,
Virtually,
we're
yeah.
also there. And Jackie Hodgson was there, yeah, for
So
understanding.
all of those members, are they happy with the minutes? Yes. Thank
Yep.
you. So I sign those.
Thank you. Yeah, we can do it after.
Afterwards, yeah, okay. So items requiring urgent attention, I haven't got anything down for that. So we now go on to the first presentation. This is item 7, which is the RAP food waste project. And the lead for this is Chris Brains, Teambridge.
Yeah, thank you. I think we've got two presentations. I'll run through a bit of an update on where we are with well, what I consider a quite exciting and innovative project to try and increase and improve our performance in relation to food waste capture and recycling. And then we've got some representatives working for RAP who have helped us with the design of potential interventions we'll be using at household level, who'll give a bit of an update on that. So, and that's in control of the slides, I think. Next. Maybe start the slideshow. Right arrow. There's some irony here, isn't there, in terms of it being a technological project we're looking at. Yeah. If you can go to number 2 then, Annette.
You need to enable editing at the top.
How about if I try and share my screen? Will that work? Yeah, I've muted that. So yeah, it's already muted, but we're getting an echo, aren't we?
Does it?
Yeah, you're getting the, but if I go mute,
I don't know, I've just try speaking now.
I think that's done it.
Yeah.
Okay, we have liftoff.
Great, apologies for that, everybody. Yeah, so it's a bit of an update really. For those who were here and remember, we talked about a project that we wanted to instigate to try and use technology to capture data in relation to who is and isn't participating in the food waste collection services. And to do that using technology to mobilise our operational staff with a device of some sort, undetermined at that time, to quickly be able to log that information and then use that data in a clever way to target our communications directly to people who we knew weren't participating in the service. So, and then on from that was to develop those interventions and communications approaches, which is the work we've been doing with REP, and was where the majority of the budget from this committee went to help us develop those interventions. And also to gain insights into what it is that's preventing people from getting involved as much as we'd like them to. And then perhaps a little bit further on from that to link those interventions down the line to some of the latest research that's going on in relation to environmental motivations and what does turn people on in terms of trying to behave in a way that does benefit the environment, because it's clearly not the same for everybody. So Teambridge are leading on the project. We're working primarily with Mid Devon, Torbay and Exeter. We had an open day where we invited a load of different tech suppliers in to sort of sell us their wares, if you like. And there was a clear winner in relation to the options and the sort of progressive mindset, I guess, with White Space, who fortunately also had an innovation fund that they were able to match fund some of the development work with some financial support as well. So the work we were doing with those guys was primarily to consider a different range of hardware options. What's that going to look like? It's quite difficult in a live and potentially dangerous operating environment that we're in when we're collecting food waste containers, essentially on busy roads with vehicles, to make sure it's easy for the staff that we intend to be using them to use, and it doesn't have any health and safety implications. And then also to ensure that the software is clever enough for it to be really easy to use and then interrogate and trigger comms to the right properties, essentially. So we looked at a range of hardware devices initially, stuff like just a physical button that's linked to a device separately, tabs on the caddies that would identify properties, just apps on phones or tablets that could maybe be in a carrier or on a device on your arm sort of thing, and a smartwatch. And that's the one we went with for various reasons in the end. So I'm pleased to say we've now got full end-to-end functionality in terms of what we want this device to do. We've got more than we need it to do at the moment. So we've sort of it's been designed so that it could be used for lots of different things in the future. But for this project, we'll be scaling it back to focus on the food waste. And essentially what it will do, it will load up that round's collection property data for that day. It will work out where the operatives are and give them a list of addresses to choose from, either using physical buttons or by the end of the work, hopefully through voice as well. And then it will be a press of the button to say the food waste container was or wasn't there. And that will go off and feed the data set that then we'll then use to inform the comms. So we anticipate that it will be fully ready to test by the end of October, and we'll begin those tests in November. So prior to that, we've been doing a lot of baseline participation monitoring work using more traditional methods on sort of iPads to go around and get a base level of participation monitoring data set up so that we can then start to test the interventions that are going to be targeted at non-participating households. I'm not going to dwell on this stuff too much because I think Rap are going to talk about it a little bit more in a bit more detail, but essentially what the work we're doing there then is to gain insight into what the main barriers are for people to get involved in the food waste service, and there's quite a range of them, and then develop interventions that will nudge people in the right direction, and then do some quite rigorous evaluation of the impacts of those interventions so we know what to then progress with. Could maybe come back to this stuff if Rap don't cover it, but here's an example of one of the things that we'll start with a softly approach. There's been a lot of discussion around the interventions we'll use, but some of them will be more disruptive, but we wanted to start softly. So if we know you're not participating and you're on one of the monitoring rounds, you like to get a postcard like this, which is a bit tongue in cheek. It does a few things. It gives you a bit of humour. It gives you information about what you can do to get involved, but it also gives that feeling that you are being monitored and we are aware that you're not getting involved. Similarly, stickers on boxes, sort of wanting to have a positive message to say, you know, it's great what you're doing. Thanks for doing your dry recycling, which most people do, but if you really want to help, it's food waste that matters. And again, information of how to get going and a link to a page where they can order everything they need. As we go down through the interventions, though, we will be getting more disruptive, and we're talking about things that might annoy people slightly, but at least then we start conversations we need to have. And then to push on further into the project down the line, not for this first phase, but we're keen to start looking in detail really about these environmental motivations so that we can target comms more efficiently as part of this project, like maybe a phase 2 sort of thing. So I don't know if anyone's got a smartphone. If you have and it's got a camera on it, you can scan that barcode. It's really easy. I'm sure the presentation will be available afterwards, but if you wanted to do it now, that's great as well. It'll take you to a quick survey, few questions, and then it will basically drop you into a category of one of 8 sort of environmental motivation brackets, if you like. And I'd be curious to know for those who do the who are able to do the QR link survey, and I'll go back to the QR code in a second, where it sticks you and also how you feel about that, if it sort of aligns with your self-perception, if you like. Because what this can then do down the line is help us understand that if you're motivated by a particular thing, and it might be money. So, for example, we all know that incinerating food waste is costing us as taxpayers more than it would be if you were recycling it. So if that's the message that's going to motivate you, then it'd be good if we could work that out as part of knowing you're getting involved or not to try and motivate you. It might be that you care about your local environment more than the bigger climate change picture. So there's lots of things to sort of peel away to get to the real reasons why people don't get involved. And so I'm sort of jumping ahead to a potential next phase of the project really with this stuff. But yeah, I'm sure the slides will be available on the minutes as well, so you can go and get the code afterwards. But I think that's pretty much it from me. We can hand over to Sally. And the guys.
Can I just give a response to I've just done the questionnaire and it tells me we know that actions speak louder than words, so we're quietly getting on with being green. So that's me. There you go.
And is that how you perceive yourself?
I think I've got to take a question from Jeff down there.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting. I just wanted to know, with Tinbridge and the group that you're trialing this in, how do you dispose of food waste at the moment? By incineration, is it?
No. So we're the same as most of the districts that are running through the county's contract to anaerobic digest
yeah,
food waste
fine,
we collect.
okay. And the other thing I was going to ask is, I do wonder whether the reason why a number of people don't recycle food waste is they think it will smell when it's under their sink, and that's probably one of us of a knee-jerk type reaction. Also, I'd like to know what percentage of your waste, your residual waste, is food waste in your area?
Yeah, I haven't got those figures to hand, but they are all available on the waste composition analysis we did. Yeah.
Because in West Devon, I think it's 25% of our residual.
Yeah, it's similar for us,
Yeah.
and we're aware that we're almost missing half of the food waste that's out there.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the issues like the smelly caddies and that kind of thing, that's exactly what we were looking at for the insights, and RAP probably talk about next, I think.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you want to carry on. So thanks for answering that.
I think we're handing over to RAP and Sally now, are we? So
Yeah, so I see that Sally Wilson is online, so.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Yeah, so I'll introduce myself, and I'm here with colleagues as well from Behaviour Change Limited, so they can introduce themselves afterwards as well. And then we've just got a presentation to go through. So I'm Sally Wilson. I work in the local authority support team at RAP. We provide sort of one-to-one support for local authorities in England on their collection services, household waste recycling centres, and on their communications and engagement to try and help them implement the requirements under simpler recycling as effectively as they can. Rob, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi all, thanks Sally. Yes, so I'm Rob, one of the directors and co-founders at Behaviour Change. We are a subsidiary of RAP, and so work very closely with the teams there, with Sally and other teams, embedding behavioural science tools into the work that we all do. And I'm here with Tasha.
Hi everyone, I'm Tasha. I work for Behaviour Change as a senior behavioural intervention designer. So yeah, I've been working closely on this project with Sally and Rob and the rest of the team.
Great, thanks Tasha. I think Tasha's going to try and share her screen. Hopefully that goes okay, and then so I'll be saying next slide please when we go along. But I think Chris has done a good job of giving a bit of background, so they might be covering a bit of that again, but what I'll go through is where we are with the project, so the stages we've gone through so far and where we are at the moment, and that will include a bit about the data review that we did at the beginning and some of the insights that we looked into, and then about the qualitative research, which has obviously just been mentioned about the whole thing around yuck factor barriers and things like that, which we did with the qualitative research with Tinbridge residents to find out what they do with their food waste in the home. And then I'll hand over to Tasha and Rob to go through the behaviour change interventions and the development of those, and then the piloting of those. And then we'll have a chance for questions at the end. Next slide, please. So just obviously given the background, I think Chris has already touched on some of it. So it's looking about increasing food waste recycling participation rates across the county as a whole, but using Tinbridge as the area initially, and to look at scaling up sort of interventions and communications across Devon with a focus on the food waste. So food waste is 31% of the total the total waste that is in the residual waste bin. So obviously, despite having a food waste collection service, there's still that amount of food waste is in the residual bin, and that's not uncommon across other English local authorities that have a food waste collection service. And of that food waste that's in the residual bin, 81% is avoidable, so it could have been eaten, and some of it is still 40% 4% within packaging. So there's obviously, you know, some work to do to try and engage with residents and citizens, and to look at, you know, why they're putting that avoidable food waste into their residual waste bin still, and also the issue around packaging, which again isn't uncommon across local authorities with food waste collections. So the aim is to just look at that focus on food waste with the goal to looking at residents' experiences, how they deal with waste in the home, how they view food waste and food waste recycling, and then obviously with the view to scaling up any of this work across Devon as a whole. Next slide, please. So this just shows where we are within the project. So we started back in May looking at quantitative data. So that involved sort of analysis of national data around food waste and performance across England. And then we brought that down to southwest kind of level, and then down to the Devon and Teignbridge level. And that's data that comes from the work that WRAP does, the waste data flow, the reporting of tonnages and recycling performance, etc., that goes through to central government. And then WRAP collects a lot of that data, and we put it through to what's called our local authority portal, which looks at performance, different schemes that are operated across the country, and comparing and benchmarking in relation to sort of demographics and rurality and housing types across different authorities. So we've got a lot of data that we collect and evidence out there. So we reviewed that, and we tried to kind of whittle it down to what that means at a local level. And then there was some of the fresh qualitative research, so I'll touch on that as well in some of the slides. So looking at those insights into what actually happens within the home and how residents in your area are dealing with their food waste. And then there was a process of developing the interventions and some workshops, and then the evaluation of those, and developing the pilots that are now, we're underway with those. So that will be Tasha and Rob to cover off those. And then the recommendations will be, once all of these interventions and everything has been piloted, and we'll look at that early next year to really get into that evidence and which interventions worked, which ones, you know, could have worked slightly differently, and just reviewing all of that data to see what you can repeat again and scale up and roll out further. Next slide, please. So, sorry, that's just a nice picture of a food waste caddy. So the first thing was to look at some of the data that we have. The recycling tracker, I don't know if everyone is familiar with that. There's an annual survey that WRAP carries out with ICARO, and that's looking at surveying householders across the UK for those that are responsible within the household for dealing with waste and recycling. And it's basically getting into sort of citizen insights into how people manage their waste in the home. It's about 5,000 to 6,000 households, and representative sort of demographics and aged groups and housing types, etc., are used within that survey. And all of those are available over the years on our website. And it's just a great way of finding out, you know, really what people do in the home. And all of WRAP's campaigns and messaging and communications that we develop nationally and locally are there to kind of build on those citizen insights, so that we make sure that we're tailoring our messages and targeting to, you know, try and help with that behaviour change and encourage citizens to do the right thing with their waste and their recycling. And then we looked at some benchmarking. So that was comparing sort of the performance of Teignbridge against the rest of Devon. And again, that was sort of using data that WRAP holds, but obviously also data that the councils have. And then there was a specific insight, so set out rates and participation rates in the food waste collection on the ground in Teignbridge, and looking at their waste composition, which is how we have the data on the food waste that's still in the residual waste bin. Next slide, please. So in terms of the tracker, we looked into the southwest. We can't go too far down to the granular level of specific districts because the sample sizes and everything would be so small then, but we did look at the southwest to see if there are any particular trends there that we could pull out. And of those whose councils do provide a food waste collection service, 74% report using that service, and of those that do use the service, 97% put the food into their caddy, kitchen caddy and food waste bin. So the next slide shows that comparison of the southwest with England. So on the left with the lime green column, there's a 74% again there saying that they do use a food waste service, against a 70% rate for those other councils and authorities in England that have separate food waste collections. And then again, sort of for the southwest, 5% used to use it, but they don't use it anymore, which is lower than the rest of England. So that's obviously a positive. Once they've used it, they've continued. I tried it once when the collection started, but not since then. So that's a lower 2% in the southwest compared to the 6% in England. And I've never used it, was 19% in the southwest. So that's actually sort of higher than the England average. So on the next slide, it shows us So just to clarify, where do you put the food waste? So you say you're taking part, but where are you actually putting the food waste? And then 97% for the Southwest are using a separate container just for food waste. In England, they've got 25% are using a mixed food and garden service. So some councils have that mixed collection service underway. Some put in it with their recycling, which is obviously not the thing to do. They're putting it with their plastics and card, etc. And others put it somewhere else, which could be, you know, home composting and things, feeding it to pets and bits like that. So, but there is all of those trackers, and there's so much data that goes behind it. And if anyone is interested, we can share links, and you can go and have a look at those insights. So on the next slide, we just did a bit of sort of benchmarking work and looked at where Teambridge sits with the rest of Devon, using the data that we have from various sources. And Teambridge has the lowest set out rate of their residual waste bins, which is 73%, and that's the same as South Hams. So that's sort of how often somebody puts out their residual bin and any at every collection. So participation rate will always be higher than set out rates, because you're always participating, but you're not necessarily setting out your bin on every collection. Teambridge has the highest percentage of food waste at the 30.59% in their residual waste bin. We excluded Exeter in this because they were still rolling out their food waste collection services. And then Teambridge has the highest percentage of food waste that is whole and still in packaging. So that's things like coleslaw still in the coleslaw pot, meat still in the packaging, hasn't been opened at all, that's gone into the residual waste bin. And then overlaying the map, that's sort of from our LA portal, local authority portal, benchmarking system and data that we have. And that's actually looking at organic waste, which includes garden waste. Apologies, that should have been the one with separate food. But if you compare Teambridge across the rest of the UK, they're in the top 50% for their performance for organic collections, and actually for food waste, they're in the top 25%. So they're doing well compared to England and the UK as a whole. Next slide, please. So that of the food waste that is still in the residual waste bin, 81.3%, it's already been mentioned on the previous slide, was avoidable, so it could have been eaten, and then 43.6% is still whole and in its packaging. So that's the kind of, you know, the aim of this project is to look at why people are still doing that, why are citizens not putting all of their food waste that should go into the food waste caddies in those caddies. Next slide, please. So then we moved on to the qualitative research, and we commissioned an organisation called DJS Research, and that was about looking more at people in the home and their habits and behaviours in Teambridge and what they do with their food waste. How are they managing it in the home? How are they presenting their containers on the curbside, for example? How much food waste they think they generate and they think that they create? Do they do sort of home composting and things like that as well? And that's really getting that deeper understanding of the reasons for why they're not participating, or they're not participating in the food waste collection every week. And then looking at, obviously, the findings from that added to the quantitative research can help us develop those interventions to tackle that participation and get people doing the food waste collection all the time, but also doing it right. So on the next slide, I'll just do a quick run through because I'm sort of conscious of time as well, and there's a lot more that Tasha and Rob need to cover. In terms of the qualitative research, so it was recruiting citizens to join an online community which ran for 2 weeks. And they had to take part in sort of tasks and quizzes. They took photos of their kitchens and their caddies and how they keep their food within the house, where they keep their outside food waste bins. And it was just to really, you know, get into that understanding of what are the barriers that they might see to taking part in the food waste. Are they aware of the food waste service? Things like, do they use liners? Do they not use liners? So 16 citizens completed all of the activities in full. So we have, you know, lots of photos, lots of images, lots of bin tours. And again, that information is available and obviously, you know, can be shared if anyone wants to have a look through. There's some fantastic insights when you actually see people in the home talking about what they do. And then from that, there were 5 citizens who are the ones that we say non-compliant, so they're just not taking part in the food waste collections, and trying to do more in-depth interviews with them to find out why they're not using the service. You know, is there a reason why, and are there barriers that could potentially be overcome as to why they're not using the service? So on the next slide. So these were the findings from that qualitative research. So most residents were aware that they should recycle food waste, but there was confusion about what's allowed in the caddy and what happens to the waste afterwards. So, you know, where does it go? It goes to an AD plant. They didn't know that necessarily. So it's about more information on what happens to the food waste once it's collected. So it's good that they know that they should recycle the food waste, but then it's how do we get our communications and interventions to address that confusion over what should go out and be put in the caddy, etc. As mentioned earlier by your colleague, there was about the unpleasantness, the yuck factor, the smells, and those kind of perceptions around using a food waste collection service. And again, some of those can be perceived issues. Some might have been real experience and lived experience from some of those taking part. So again, those findings came through from the qualitative research in terms of their perceptions of the food waste collection. And then there's always that understanding and that recognition in a lot of the work that WRAP does that dry recycling is quite embedded now. It's a social norm. People are used to recycling their glass, their cans, their plastics, etc. But food waste is not there yet. It's not seen as necessarily a required service to take part in, maybe a bit more of an optional service. Some are not always clear that it's a weekly service, something that's fortnightly. So there are some things around that, and it's not a social norm yet. Not everybody's doing it, and we need to build that momentum so it becomes as much of a norm as dry recycling is. And then there are sort of practical barriers and challenges, things like finding space for the kitchen caddy within the kitchen or the food curbside bin to go outside, the wind exposure, the weather, or the elements that can have a bit of an issue with taking part in the service and your satisfaction of the service. Things like inconsistent collections. So if something's missed one week, are they asked to leave it out for the following collection? Maybe that's a bit inconsistent, or not really knowing what to do if there is a missed collection. And also things like if the caddy isn't put back at the collection point and it ends up a few houses down, and things like that, which cause barriers to people from taking part in the service and their experience that they have with it. And then in terms of recycling behaviours in practice, sort of residents fall into broad groups. Those who recycle food waste confidently, those who are willing but they're inconsistent, and those who just rarely or never take part. And each of those different types of groups needs messaging and communications and support in very different ways. And that's what the ethos is of this project really is all about. So I'll hand over now to Rob and Tasha, and they can take you through the development of the pilots and the interventions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. So yeah, now we just wanted to kind of talk you through the interventions we've developed and our plan for piloting them over the course of the next 6 months or so. So we'll be doing 3 different pilots in Teambridge, all following this below model. So we'll start with 3 weeks of pre-monitoring to identify the houses that aren't putting their food waste container out in a consecutive 3-week period. This will then give us the homes that we want to deliver intervention A to, so delivering them to just purely non-compliant homes. We'll then do another 3 weeks of monitoring to record whether homes have started to put their caddies out following the intervention, and then we'll deliver a second intervention, intervention B, to households which are still not presenting their food waste in that round of pre-monitoring. And then we'll continue to monitor those houses that have received intervention B to see which of them are then setting out their food waste caddies. So the first pilot, the pre-monitoring began this week, I believe, ready for intervention A's to be delivered to the non-compliant homes week commencing 3rd of November, so in a few weeks' time. And we're actually trialling 2 different A interventions. So the houses on Tuesday and Thursday's collection round are receiving one of our intervention A's, whereas Wednesday and Friday collection rounds are receiving a different intervention A. And then we are going to deliver an intervention B to all houses who are still not putting out their food waste caddy after receiving A1 or A2. And that intervention will be going out week commencing the 1st of December. So in terms of the interventions we have developed so far, so for the first pilot, the November pilot, intervention A1 is the postcard that Chris showed you a bit earlier on. So the postal plea, we called it. And so what this is a bit of a kind of fun postcard written from the point of view of food items which have been put in the rubbish bin rather than recycled. So we've gone with some unavoidable food waste here to make sure we're not promoting things that are edible going into the bin. But the idea is that these kind of food items have been brought to life and become a bit of characters, and they're kind of looking sad, looking squishy, with a bit of humour and emotion baked in to grab people's attention and make them feel motivated or make them feel like they should start recycling their food. And then in terms of the content on the back, it's kind of this checklist, old style postcard, where it's quite easy for people who receive it to quickly digest the information, but it includes within it information about what happens to food when it's recycled. So wishing I was in a food waste container to be recycled into fertiliser or recycled into biogas. So it's got those messages about what happens to food that's been recycled in there, to drive up the knowledge and the motivation that we found was lacking in the qualitative research. And then kind of at the end of the postcard, we've got chunked up steps on how to recycle food, to make it really easy and make it really understandable for people to know what it is that they should be doing. So ordering the free indoor caddies, outdoor food waste containers, and then that messaging around what can be used as a liner, so any bag or newspaper, which was something that people were uncertain about. Also, all types of food was something we decided on as a message in our workshop, and yeah, making sure people have that information ready so that they can recycle. And then both of our interventions, I don't know if you can see very clearly on the screen, have some print at the bottom that just says why that household has received the intervention. So you've received this as we've noticed your food waste container's not been out for recycling. So it's also giving that kind of feedback mechanism of, you know, we do know that you're not actually complying in the service. And then there's a QR code and a link for people to follow to be able to order their free caddies or to find out a bit more information about the service. So that's our A1 intervention. So we'll be going out to half of the non-compliant homes. And then the A2 intervention kind of is a different mechanism. So it's an A5 sticker. And this one will be stuck onto the recycling boxes. So the boxes where the kind of dry mixed or cardboard cans, etc. recycling go into. On homes that are obviously complying with that type of recycling, but not complying with the food waste recycling service. So what it's kind of aiming to do is thanking people for doing the right thing, highlighting their pro-environmental motivations that they obviously kind of already have, but also at the same time giving them kind of a friendly reminder that they could make even more of a difference if they also recycled their food waste. So kind of highlighting, you know, the fact that they're doing something good, but they could really do even better. And this intervention, whilst also obviously kind of having that feedback baked within it, because we're highlighting to people that we know they're not recycling their food, it also acts as a bit of a social signal, because you'd be able to see on your neighbours' boxes whether they had a sticker or not, and why did I have a sticker. So there's kind of a bit of a social norming effect as well, to kind of motivate people to shift their behaviour in order to join the people who are already recycling. So that's our second intervention for the first pilot, so A2. So then what we're going to do for this pilot is 3 weeks later, we're going to deliver an intervention B. We don't have the visuals for this yet. We'll be working with our designer on it, but what we've decided to go for pilot 1 is an opportunity for people to give feedback. So sending postcards to those homes that are still non-compliant after receiving intervention A1 or A2, to let them know that they have been involved in a food waste recycling initiative, and kind of asking them, you know, why is it that you're not engaging, giving them the chance to give us some information back. via kind of a survey with an incentive. So we'll include a variety of different reasons. So the fact they don't have a caddy, they're using different methods for food waste, they didn't notice the intervention, etc. And also within that, providing information about the service, kind of the what, the why, the how, and also instructions on how to order a free caddy. So this does act as an intervention in itself, again through the kind of feedback mechanism, because we can say, you know, we've noticed you're still not recycling your food waste, so they know that, you know, someone is taking notice of what they're doing. But our kind of main thinking around this one is that this project we're trying something a bit new, a bit more disruptive. So we thought for pilot one, to kind of mitigate the fact that people might get their backs up slightly, we could do a bit of a softer intervention B, with the idea of to kind of avoid the frustration that someone might feel if they're potentially just a composter, or there's like a more positive reason they're not recycling their food, because that's what we found came up a lot in the qualitative research, that there was like kind of other waste streams. And then the idea is the pilot 2 that we will take forwards in kind of February time, we might try something a bit more disruptive, as Chris mentioned in his presentation. So that's kind of our pilot 1 interventions. And then what our plans for pilot 2 and 3 are, they're currently scheduled for implementation in February and April. And we have had conversations about a variety of different interventions we can use for these pilots. So they've kind of, we've had those early conversations, but we haven't made solid decisions on exactly what they will be just yet. So it'll be something that I'm sure you can get updated on soon. But yeah, those conversations are ongoing at the moment.
It's worth saying we have a short list of strong interventions that everybody on the team is happy with. It's just about which ones we take forward, and therefore, you know, which ones we actually kind of execute.
Yeah. I can see a hand up.
Have you finished your presentation? Because I'll take questions then. Can you just confirm?
We've got just a couple of slides on evaluation, so just a couple more minutes, and then yeah, we can take questions.
Thank you, Tasha. Can you carry on then? Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
take the questions afterwards.
So yeah, just quickly our evaluation kind of approach. So in terms of our success criteria for these pilots, we essentially want to see, after people have received the intervention, we want to see that some of the households are starting to set out their food waste containers when they weren't doing so before. So we want that to happen at least once during the second set out measurement period. So that's our kind of key success criteria. And then obviously those who are still not complying with intervention A will receive intervention B. So we'll be measuring that through obviously the post-intervention monitoring of the set out rate. So how many households are putting out their containers at least once in that period following the intervention. And then we can do a bit of comparison between A1 and A2 to see if either the postcard or the sticker are more or less effective. And then we'll obviously repeat this again following the intervention B delivery. But on top of the set out rates, there's also some other areas or other information we want to gather to help us to measure the success. So obviously we've set up the dedicated page on the Tinbridge website and the QR code that people can visit to find out more information or to order their caddy. So we can track some of the data around that webpage specifically. We've also asked if we can get any anecdotal evidence from collection crews when they go around on those rounds following interventions. There'll obviously be the self-reported data from the survey and intervention B, which will be useful for us. And we're also in the process of designing that survey now, so we'll make sure that we've got kind of interesting questions that we want to know the answer to. And then, of course, we can also track how many containers or caddies are ordered through that QR code and URL that's been set up specifically for this pilot. So any containers or caddies ordered through that link will know it is as a result of seeing our interventions. So yeah, there's kind of the set out rate, and there's also some other bits of data we're going to look at to measure success. So any questions?
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Josh Wright, who's online.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me at that end?
Yeah.
Lovely. Tasha, this is a really exciting project. We've been discussing how to get food waste recycled more in Mid Devon. I'm Cabinet for Service Delivery and Continuous Improvement, which includes this. How many of these postcards are you planning on sending out is my first question, Tasha. So A1, the original intervention.
Yeah, so we've got 500 ordered at the moment. So that's just, so it's only going out to non-compliant homes in 2 rounds at the moment, but our rough estimation is it should be 500 or less homes. So that's what we've gone with for now.
And one of the things that I regularly mention is that, you know, recycling's been common for a long time, and food caddies in a lot of districts has been common, but we're still seeing a lot of food waste in residuals. I personally feel as though it's actually more of a kind of enforcement issue. It's a compliance. People are choosing not to do it. And it would be lovely if on some of these intervention stickers, we could mention that you are legally required to put your waste out as we request, and to actually say, please, we're willing to help you, we're willing to train you, order the caddies, but there is actually some sort of compliance issue and enforcement issue coming up. You know, and it would be lovely to say on some of these, half of them we said you must comply, otherwise we're going to enforce, and half we didn't. We did it as a gentle nudge and tracked. I think they've done lots of big studies where you have A and B, and tracked whether actually telling people you must comply, otherwise we'll enforce, and telling other people you won't. I have an instinct that actually telling people you're going to have to put your waste out as we request, number one, it's the law. And number two, it costs us a fortune to process this, and we'd rather spend the money on other important activities. But it would be lovely to split these and see if telling people that you're going to have to comply would be a very interesting case study. Is there any way we could put that in before we print and do half of them with the compliance and half without, or am I too late?
Maybe I could just respond briefly to that. So I mean, the short answer is you are a bit late for this particular pilot, but also I think what I would say to that is that's a completely different intervention. So you know, so going down a compliance enforcement route would be an intervention in itself that we would want to test separately. So not to try and, so each one of these is intended to have a fairly singular behavioural idea at the heart of it. Enforcement and that kind of route is a separate behavioural kind of tactic in itself. So we want to compare.
Rob, thank you. We've got quite a few questions, and time is marching on. So I think that's very helpful answer. Councillor Moody, did you have your hand up? You did, didn't you?
Thank you very much. That was a very interesting presentation. I'm still thinking about the barriers that are there between the participating and not participating. 2 things that come to mind is, are people aware, have they been educated of how they would line their caddy? With anaerobic digestion, what we do in my home is we put a plastic bag in there. Plastic, yes, but when it goes through anaerobic digestion treatment, the plastic bags are scraped out and filtered out. So I think some people may think, I can't put a plastic bag in. Some people may think, I need to put the raw food just into the empty bin, and then it gets messy, and then we're going to clean it out and all the rest of it. So it's that. And also the other aspect is vegetarian households and meat eating households, because meat starts to fester and smell after a period of time. And I'm wondering whether there's any investigation into plant-based waste and mixed. Thank you.
Could I ask you to be really quick in your answers? Thank you.
I'll just do a very quick answer then. I mean, from a vegetarian household here, veg waste can smell pretty bad as well. But yeah, that definitely does come up in the barriers. But when we were discussing this as a group, I think we agreed that it's not enough of a barrier or motivator in itself, purely knowing that you can use any bag or any lining. It's in there, but it's not it's not enough to get people who are non-compliant over the line. So we've got it in there in terms of the messaging, but it's not a singular idea in itself.
And there was the bag question.
Yeah, that was what I was meaning there. Was it's in there, so it's in there, the list of things that Tasha would out on the postcard, for example, as the steps that you need to take is kind of use any bag or liner or newspaper. But it's what we're saying is it's not a motivating enough idea in itself to just focus on any bag will do. That was the conclusion that we came to as a group.
Thank you. Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, thank you. And probably this is going to run through it all. So we've got LGR. All our collection councils are going to finish. What account have you taken of that? And is it an opportunity to use a completely different way of collecting rubbish? On the continent, they have more communal collection points, and they do it every day. So people put it as and when they want to do it, rather than the weekly collection that we use in this country. I just wonder, if we're taking that into account, and if, what work we're doing towards that.
Shall I pick up on that one? Yeah. I think the fact we've just all been obliged through law to offer weekly household level food waste collections across the country sort of sets the precedent for what we're going to have to do for the foreseeable future, irrespective of how local government's set up. So there's not really currently a legal way to move away from individual weekly household food waste collections. So in terms of this project, and certainly the medium term, I don't think that falls into the remit of this project. But on the flip side of that, the whole sort of ethos of the project is that we're designing the comms, we're designing the tech to be able to be used across authority boundaries. So we're already working with Torbay and Exeter and Mid, and we'll come back in February with a bit more detail around the next proposed phase. But the scalability aspects, we're looking to push it out into different authority areas as well. So let's just take one massive Devon LGR scenario. This project can still have big benefits for improving capture rates across whatever area we choose to use it in, assuming it's successful.
And just very briefly to add to that, Chris, from a behavioural perspective, the one thing that will get people over the line of doing stuff is if it's as easy as possible. So that's always the first thing we go to, is make the behaviour you're trying to elicit as easy as possible. If there's an extra barrier, like you have to collect something in your house, then you have to go somewhere else communal to dispose of it, then people are even less likely to do it. In terms of the way our waste disposal systems are currently set up anyway. So yeah, I think that's just an additional little thought to add.
Thank you. I'm now going to Councillor Young.
Thank you. I think it's a great initiative. Nudging people in the right direction is what you said at the beginning, which is the way I think we need to go. Enforcement would be very much down the road. Selling the benefit of recycling food waste for environmental reasons and for customers is good. I don't think we should be saying it's better for the district council, because now they will say, well, you have to do your job anyway. it does remind me a bit like potty training. No, it's hard work to get recycling, but then it's worth it in the end. So we need to explain the benefits. My black bin never smells because I never put any food in it. And you need to identify the types of people. There are different types of people that don't do it. I know busy families don't do it as much because they just haven't got time. There are the lazy ones, and then there is the new customers, and they all need treated differently. So it's a big task, this. And my question would be, how do we know when it's a success, and what sort of comms are we going to do at the end to encourage other people to do it? Thank you.
Can you be very quick in your responses, please? Thank you.
Do you want to take, how do we know if it's a success?
Well, in terms of the pilot, our success metrics are around the set out rate afterwards. So we want to see houses that have had the interventions begin to set out their food waste containers, and that's our kind of key success measure in terms of the pilots. In terms of the communications, I think that's maybe for Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll cover that a bit more at the next committee meeting when we come back with proposals to evolve the project, if that's okay. I mean, I'm not sure what the rules are in East Devon, but just to clarify, we don't advise Teambridge residents to use caddies as potties. But
Right, thank you. Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you. Yeah, just quickly, are you going to do a follow-up in the form of anything like a postcard asking for feedback for residents? Is that part of it? Did I miss anything like that?
We've got the intervention B is kind of that, I guess, in feedback in terms of why aren't they engaging. There's no current plans to ask people that have started engaging in the service that have seen a intervention for feedback. That's not built into our interventions at the moment. I don't know if it's something that the council could look at further down the line or not. But
I mean, ultimately, the main thing we want to understand is if people are still not participating, why not? Ultimately, if people are participating, we're kind of happy. So that's the main thing we need to understand, hence why that's the intervention B in the first round.
Just thought maybe a quick postcard that just said, you know, what was it that finally did it for you, or something like that. Just
It's definitely something to consider, yeah.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions myself. Really exciting project. Can't wait to have the update in February. So perhaps if that could be time for our next meeting, which is in later on in February. Just in terms of the methodology, you had 20 online and 5 in-depth interview. Did they represent the demographics of the residents that you were trying to reach? So did they include people from houses of multiple occupation, which can be younger people and also older people? So it's just looking at the demographics. So my second question is on crew training using the smart watches.
Oh, in terms of the recruitment, I don't know if Rob wants to jump in as well. In terms of the recruitment, yeah, the focus was on curbside properties. I think with HMOs, and flats and communals, it's and even more of a challenge. So I think we'll sort of start with the curbside. But yes, they were selected. I mean, we can provide you with more information if you'd like of how that recruitment process worked. So it's door knocking, faced on the street kind of recruitment of those, representing the different age groups, different demographics. But I can provide you with more detail on that if we're sort of short on time here.
Just to clarify, the reason I'm asking is that we have many student HMOs in Exeter, and they can vary from having 4 to 8 or 9 in a household. It's still going to be curbside, so it's quite important because I think that's a real challenge when they change from year to year.
Yeah, I think again in terms of expanding the project into more areas when we move into Exeter potentially as part of a bid for next year's budget, then we can factor in some of the specific districts challenges. Torbay will have their own as well, of course. And
And
on the training, yeah, the watch training for me really, it is a challenge. The idea is it becomes as simple as possible to use, but the sort of model we're leaning towards at the moment is setting up a loader plus job description. So we'd effectively identify some loaders who are a bit more tech savvy, and then they'd become roaming loaders that would cover the whole district and be the experts on the use of the tech. So at the minute we're going to deploy 5 watchers initially, and that's part of the whole pilot, is to see how those aspects go as well. So
thank you, that's really important. Thanks very much. I've got, yes, Councillor Fivecook, just to explain that since you're not a formal member of the committee, then it's up to my discretion to allow you to answer, to ask a question. So I will do on this occasion. So thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the information. It certainly told me a few facts and figures that I didn't realise. I'm one of the 19% who's never put food out by the side of the road for collection. I happen to be a vegetarian. We collect it, we put it in biodegradable bags, and it goes out to composting. The reason I'm saying that is a few years ago we used to have local, it was sponsored compost heaps in villages, in small towns, etc. I think it would, are we going to look at schemes like that again? Because obviously food waste is an incredible expense to us. Also, I was shocked to see that nearly 44% was put into bins still in plastic. Maybe we should be looking at that as well as an add-on. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. I'm sure that items such as encouraging communal composting will come up in later meetings. So thank you for that intervention. Have we got any more questions? So it just leaves me to thank our presenters on this very, very exciting project. So yes, please do keep us posted and be aware of the timings of our meetings so it can coincide and we can keep us all updated, because I think we're all very, very keen. Can I just add, there was one bit of confirmation or clarification. You mentioned that Team Bridge was doing this with input from Exeter and another district. Which district?
yeah, so it's Mid Devon, Torbay and Devon County.
Oh, right.
Okay, the
so
core project
I think that's really, really interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So we're now going to go on to item 8, which is the budget position for 2025-26.
Thank you. I'll try not to make this too long, mainly because we are not proposing a budget for next year at this point in time. You'll see that the description of the food waste project, which is a considerable proportion of the budget, we need to wait for the conclusions to that, and it's going to go on the next 6 months. So I will come back in February with a proposal for next year's budget. So in the meantime, I'm just going to run through where we are this year, which at this time of the year does show not a huge expenditure because we are only 6 months through the year. So the 3 items that we're spending the money on this year is Don't Let Devon Go to Waste, campaign work, the food waste project that you've just heard about, and Clean Devon, the litter and fly tipping partnership. You can see on page 1 the current expenditure is around 73,000 of £196,000 budget. So those 3 areas, initially Don't Let Devon Go to Waste. We at this time of the year we report the previous year's campaigns, of which there were 11, and they're detailed in Appendix 1, which I can go to if anybody wants me to at the end. And this year we've had 5 paid for campaigns on various subjects, from home composting to plastics recycling. We've also designed a community map on recycledevon.org website, where you can see all the community initiatives, such as repair cafes, easily, and then therefore if you'd like to know where your local repair cafe is, to go to it, you can just look it up on the community map. We've also started working much more closely with the libraries, where we've had Halloween clothes swaps and repair cafes as well. In fact, there's going to be a major repair cafe in Barnstaple on Saturday because it's International Repair Day. So that's organised by ourselves. And also a highlight with Ruth there and Jackie was raising a special flag for the start of Recycle Week here at County Hall. So the food waste project, I'm not going to go over that again. However, it is in 3 parts. And one of the parts you haven't heard about today, which is the Monster Bin project. This is where a team from Resource Futures goes into a number of schools, and one person is dressed as a monster and pops out of the bin saying, please recycle your food waste. And the children are given a lesson, an assembly, and then they take that message home. And then the next day, the local district council team are on hand to provide caddies if the children have got home and found there's no caddy, and they have messages on the caddies, fun type things that excite the children into pestering their parents. So there's that project as well that's happening in Mid Devon, East Devon, South Hams and West Devon. They've held the first one, but that'll be running over the autumn term. Then we've mentioned the RAP project and the Smart Watch project. So that summarises all the food waste project work at the moment. So that's ongoing for the rest of the year and potentially creeping into next year because of all the participation monitoring, which does take time. And then thirdly, the last way that the money was spent this year is on the Clean Devon Fly Tipping and Litter Partnership. Lots has been going on this year. We've had 2 fake fly tipping events in East Devon. And also we were there in West Devon yesterday. Similarly, with the police, the Environment Agency and the local councils to highlight the issue of fly tipping, to encourage the public to report fly tipping, but also to make sure they understand their duty of care to hand their waste over to someone who's licensed. So that gives an opportunity to talk to members of the public and highlight what they need to do apart from not fly tip. So that's been really successful, and it's a great example of working in partnership with some other key organisations. Then we've had a pop-up similarly in a town centre in Totnes, again to give the same sort of messages but just trying a different venue, which proved valuable. And then we were at the DALC conference, the Local Association of Local Councils, because they've all got an interest in litter and fly tipping in their own areas. So again, it was an opportunity to show them what we're doing. Most of the money, however, has been spent on CCTV, and that's going to continue. Exeter, I believe, have got their cameras out in place. Teambridge are close to it, as is Torbay, and most of the other councils are planning something this year, if not next year. So that's a matter of putting out some CCTV and signage. It takes some work because you have to comply with the law it has to be compatible with your IT systems, and it's preferable to have political buy-in as well. So it's time consuming, but we're getting there on that one. Then because the financial year ends in March, hopefully we'll be having another campaign. This year's campaign was a roadside litter campaign. You may have seen bus backs around the county showing 3 million small animals dying each year as a result of roadside litter. I was going to share some images, but I don't think I'm going to try right now. But I can show, they can accompany the minutes as a short few slides. So it was very successful, and it was put out at the same time as the Great British Spring Clean. Yeah, so just to confirm that we will bring the budget proposal for next year in February.
Thank you. Any questions for Annette? Yes, Jeff.
First of all, would it be appropriate for councillors to accompany to the schools for the monster thing? Because it would be really, I'd really like to see how that works. Educating the children to educate the parents is a really good idea. The other thing, fly tipping, I went on the 2 occasions that we had in East Devon. It went down really well. Unfortunately, we're not covering all fly tipping, because fly tipping on our land, on road verges, that's our responsibility. Fly tipping in people's own land and in farmers' land is down to them. And somehow we need to, now if we do a big campaign to stop it on our areas, it's going to possibly move it onto private land and farmers, and we need to work with the NFU and local farmers groups to have a combined effort into trying to stop fly tipping. Thank you.
Can I just come in before you answer, Annette, just to let Jeff know that I was going to suggest that we consider, as part of our spend, having membership of Keep Britain Tidy, because they're about to launch a campaign against fly tipping starting November the 10th. I went to a webinar, participated in a webinar yesterday. So membership is £1,045. So I'm going to ask officers of Devon to consider exploring a membership of Keep Britain Tidy, so we can access their the comms that are going to be using, because there's things like videos on fly tipping, and it's not just your bag of black waste in front of your clothes bank. It's also when you've got these waste, these people offering to take your waste away, and it's what people can do to check whether they're legit or not. So so I just thought I'd intervene at that point. And I'm also going to certainly ask the City Council to separately look at whether it's appropriate to pay the £1,000 and get membership. So I think maybe all districts might look into that. We can certainly, if we can send out with the minutes the link to the Keep Britain Tidy membership and what they're offering, then you can consider for yourselves whether it's something that you might want to do. So over to you, Annette.
Yeah, just briefly on that, we did consider this in the past as a committee, and because it's if you included everyone, you were looking at £12,000 or something like that. Then we concluded that we wouldn't. But and whether you're allowed one membership and then share all the resources, I'm not sure, but worth everyone looking, and perhaps we can discuss it for the next budget meeting, if if it came from the Clean Devon budget, for example.
I think my the reason I'd like to look at it sooner rather than later, though, is because this campaign starts on the 10th of November. Anyway,
And the monster bins, yes, Bobby is in charge of the monster bin project, so I'm sure she can tell you where the East Devon schools will be, or the other schools as well.
Yeah, no, you're right next to me. But yes, we can definitely invite you along. They're just getting the dates and the diaries at the moment. It'll be running, well, actually right through till March, actually, and it depends very much on the schools. But yes, we can let you know when the East Devon ones are, and if you're free, it'd be great if you come along. Yeah, we'll be doing some comms after the half term as well, just to highlight the monster bins in the different district areas.
Bobby, could I ask why there aren't any assemblies taking place in Exeter?
We had an officer discussion many moons ago, and those were the authorities that chose to take part.
That's disappointing. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it was almost that the ones that were taking part more closely in the food waste may not have taken part in the monster bin, but I'm not sure if that does coincide. So.
I mean, certainly very much from our point of view, it was just the districts we were told wanted to do it. But longer term, we're hoping to involve or incorporate like a mini monster in a little caddy so we can integrate it into our main waste education programme. We're not there yet with that, but that is the longer term plan. So hopefully, and you know, the monster bin assemblies are great. Come along and have a look at one if you like, and then perhaps think about it for another year.
Thank you very much. Any further questions? Yes, Jackie.
So in terms of the wider view of the budget, what I wanted to ask was because I've been made very aware this year that Refurnish, which operates a number of places across the county, is struggling to continue, and obviously there's all sorts of reasons for the problem with finances for these groups, but they make a massive difference the amount of waste that they are diverting. And but my question is, are the other similar operators that do the same kind of large scale furniture, etc., and white goods recyclers and resellers in the system that they do, are they also struggling or not? And if they all are, I was going to ask whether or not at some stage we could look at how we might make sure that they don't go under, because they're making a big difference, and it would cost us a lot to replace what they do.
I'm not sure we know the answer to that, but we can look into it. I know Rio is operating. No, so there aren't a huge number because Refurnish covered a lot of ground, didn't they? But we can have a look into it.
Jeffrey, thanks.
I think my thunder was stolen. I was going to raise this issue in any other business, but the thing is that a lot of us don't, till I researched it. They have 8 charity shops. They divert 500 tons of furniture from our collection. They cover areas from Tavistock, Totnes, Crediton, Buckfastleigh, South Hams, Tinbridge, Torbay, Plymouth, Exeter and parts of Cornwall. So it's massive. And what I was going to suggest, I would like to propose that this committee takes a strategic stance on this, and that we formally recognise that the importance of the reuse charities, because Refurnish isn't just the only one, and request a joint briefing on the implications of closure, because when those charities, if the charity closes, we need to explore ways that we can support Refurnish and similar organisations, and this is well within the remit of this strategic committee. So I would ask that I would like to propose that we take a strategic stance.
Yes, we can look into that, Councillor Moody.
Thank you. Any more questions? Can I just ask whether, because I know on the Devon County Council waste and recycling and reuse, you've got lots and lots of really useful links. Do you include links to reuse of furniture? You have. And is this particular charity on there linked to their particular provisions? Okay, thank you very much.
So I do just want to double check. I think that was a formal proposal from Councillor Moody.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether or not we have a seconder for that. That's fine. So just for, that's fine. Yeah, so I've got some wording here.
All right, okay.
That you're proposing, I'd like to propose that the committee takes a strategic stance on recognising the importance of reuse charities and request a briefing from officers on the possible implications or budgetary implications, something like that, of the closure of these charities. Is that?
And also to analyse, and this may be a bigger ask, is to analyse what the potential impact on the district councils and the county council would be if 500 tonnes of recycled furniture isn't being taken by the charities.
Okay, cool. That's fine. I've got that. So that's been proposed by yourself, seconded by Councillor Hodgson. The actual report itself doesn't have any recommendations to need voting on. It's just to note. So
I also asked Jack about having a whether other charities, similar charities, were suffering as was refurnished, and Annette said that they would actually have a look at see what the problem, where the problem is. And
that's fine. So I think that might be folded in because there's a line in that about a briefing on the implications of closure of all the reuse charities. So that might be folded into that, but I can.
It's also just to look at what their current situation is. So it's like when we, I know it's refurnished is struggling, but whether the others are similar.
That's fine. Just for a point of order, are you okay as the original proposer of that if that's folded into the
Yeah,
recommendation?
absolutely. And that's exactly what I mean. It's not
That's
just refurnish, it's all the other charities as well.
Just to double check, do we have any other amendments or proposals that anyone wants to make? Are we okay to vote on that then?
Yeah, we'll go to the vote. Those in support?
That's every councillor in the
Yeah.
room that can vote. Yeah, that's
Thank
passed.
you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So now we go on to item 9, the performance statistics. So who's going to introduce this one?
Thanks, Chair.
I'm going to allow 15 minutes max on this one because we've got Bobby's told me that she needs about 20 minutes for hers. So we're going to be, might have to keep you here slightly longer than 4 o'clock. If hopefully that isn't an issue for anybody.
Okay.
You've got another meeting at 4, right?
Okay,
If you can
no,
do it as
don't
quickly
worry,
as
I'll do my
possible, and
best.
I might be a bit tight on.
These slides are quite technical, so I will make them available as part of the meeting. And then if you've got any queries later, by all means, come back to me in terms of any questions you might have. I thought it'd be this presentation is in 2 parts. One, the first part is about government policy and what's happening in the big in the waste world nationally, and the second part is about what's happening in Devon and Torbay with our district colleagues too. So in terms of cost, I mean, you're obviously aware of the cost of living's gone up, everything seems to be going up, but we thought it'd be interesting just to share with you the retail price index, which basically impacts on all our costs. And you can see it was quite stable up until 21-22. And then with the Ukraine war and the energy spike and obviously COVID, 8.2% increase in costs of contracts and general provision of waste services. That was followed by 13.8% increase. And then down to 4.5 and 3.4. So between 2022 and 2025, the cost of providing services has gone up 7.5% on average every year, year on year. So you can see the cost of the service that we provide is significantly more than what it was back in 21, 22. So it's just worth bearing that in mind, really, that actually our costs have gone up significantly. In terms of government policy, there's been a lot of work around single-use items, and the government have quite rightly banned a lot of these items, polystyrene packaging for takeaway foods, the charge on carrier bags, plastic cutlery, cotton buds, and the little Knox containers as well, and also the non-biodegradable wet wipes. Which has all been successful in getting the message across that we should be reusing these articles. We shouldn't be having single use articles going forwards. And the most recent one is the single-use disposable vapes, which I'm sure you're all aware of. And we collect these at the Waste Recycling Centres now, and we've had 2 tonnes so far So that's quite a number of vapes. 80% of the materials in vapes can be recycled, which is obviously quite significant. Single-use vapes are banned from 1st June 2025, and hopefully we will see less and less of them being littered. You're obviously also aware of the electrical fires recently on the M5, down to batteries, they suspect. So yeah, it caused a lot of damage. Okay, in terms of government policy, there's probably 3 main ones that are impacting on local authorities, which is simpler recycling, which is recycling the same materials at home, work or school, which should be really effective in getting that message across that you recycle wherever you are, whether you're at home, whether you're in your office, whether you're at school, and you can recycle the same materials, that being glass, metal, plastic, paper and card. Food waste. Food waste is actually statutory waste collection now from 2026. Every household should have a weekly food waste collection. Garden waste is down to the individual councils and it can be charged for. And the government is basically wanting a standardised national approach. Extended producer responsibility for packaging. Again, you're aware of that because we've talked about this a lot at this committee. You've probably also seen it in the news recently in terms of the producers and their comments on this and the costs that they're incurring because bills are now landing with them to actually pay towards the cost of managing packaging. And again, that includes glass, aluminium, steel, paper, card, plastic, wood, and other packaging materials. And the idea behind this is that producers take the responsibility for managing the packaging they produce, and that should encourage them to actually produce less packaging and also make that packaging more recyclable. And we're already seeing some of the impact of that in the supermarkets in terms of the food that we buy. Digital waste tracking, again, that's coming in. It's basically a digital way of recording all waste movements, which should make it much easier to understand where waste is being moved and how much is being moved. That also is supported by the reform of the waste carrier, broker and dealer registration and the waste duty of care. So that's all it should in terms of what's being actually implemented, help improve or reduce waste crime. DRS scheme, again, you're aware of that. It operates operates worldwide. It's been introduced in Ireland, and Councillor Hodgson showed me the little logo that's on the plastic bottles that it's been applied to. It's going to apply to plastic drinks containers and metal drinks containers between 150 ml and 3 litres, but glass bottles are not included. And the final piece that's being worked on now is the circular economy strategy, which is basically the government's plan to make keep resources in use longer. So actually see, rather than have a linear economy, we actually have a circular economy where we see resources being used again and again and again. And that's also to reduce emissions. And that's being worked on by an independent task force. And they're looking at a variety of materials, including textiles. That's being published for consultation later this year. And we're expecting great things out of that. In terms of timelines, simply recycling businesses, it's already in. For households, it should be in by the end of March 2026. And for small businesses, it should be in by 2027. That's those that employ less than 10 full-time employees. In terms of extended producer responsibility for packaging, that's also already in. First payments to local authorities should be happening next month. But actually, we know that Devon authorities, so that's the districts, County Council and Torbay, will be receiving in the region of £20 million to cover the cost of packaging for this financial year, which is a significant sum from the producers. Also in 26, there'll be modulated fees whereby those producers that produce less recyclable packaging will pay more than those that produce more recyclable packaging. And the government are looking at how to implement that. And also EPR is under constant review, because as you can imagine, it's a massive scheme to bring in. So government keeping a very close eye on that through PAC UK, which is the scheme administrator for that. Digital waste tracking, currently going through beta testing, which basically they've chosen a few individuals to look at what they're implementing to basically make it bug-free when it goes live, which should be going live in 2026 and then fully live in 27. The deposit return scheme is go live date is October 27. The deposit management organisation is already established, and so work is ongoing on that. Still yet to understand how it's going to impact on local authorities and their waste collections, because obviously we collect some really valuable materials that are going into the reverse vending machines put up in supermarkets. Some will still go through curbside collection. We yet don't know how that's going to be accounted for in terms of the deposits that are paid and whether local authorities get those back or not. But we do have concerns about this because it will see a reduction in our income for the materials that we sell, particularly the aluminium. And the last but not least is circular economy strategy, consultation launched later this year and published next year. The other big one is the UK emissions trading scheme. I'm not going to spend very long on this because I'm conscious of time, and it's still very much in its infancy, but there was consultation done on bringing energy from waste plants into the UK emissions trading scheme, whereby the carbon emissions from the plants will be brought into an overall cap and trade system, whereby there will be a cost of a carbon credit for each kind of fossil carbon that's emitted by the plants. Yet to understand how that's going to work through the system, but the operators will be looking to pass those costs on to their customers, and most of their customers are local authorities, so there will be costs being passed down through. Government are currently looking at that. Through the consultation, they realised the impact it could have on councils and potentially in section 114 notices, actually bringing councils into significant financial hardships, and also potentially diverting that money away from very key services like children's services. So they are looking at that and how to support councils with that. But we understand that the fossil content of packaging that's in the residual waste will be passed on to the producers. So they will pick up some of those costs too. Partial response consultation came out in summer, and they're now looking at a monitoring, reporting and verification period for the operators to understand how it might work going forwards. But currently it's planned to come in with the financial consequences from 2028. So we're looking closely at that and how it may impact on the amount of waste that we send through the energy from waste plants. You can see from the graph above that actually the landfill has all but disappeared in terms of the amount we send to landfill now, but that's been replaced by energy from waste. So it's going to energy which isn't composted or recycled, is now going to energy from waste plants. So moving around now to the actual Devon Torbay situation or performance. We've been working towards the aligned option, as you know, for some years now. We're pretty much almost there. This shows you, all the ticks show you we are where we want to be. And with food waste, we're almost there now, 63%, which I think is right.
It's 70% now.
Oh, is it? Gosh,
We've
it's gone up
got
again.
another 4,000 rolling out now.
Well done, well done. I understand it's going to be complete by next March. So that's really good news. So then all districts will be collecting food waste across Devon, which will make the comms a lot easier in terms of going out to the residents, which is really good, and also reducing the amount going through to the energy waste plants. So that's where we are in terms of the rolling out to the Devon aligned collection. But how does that fit in with simpler recycling? Well, it actually fits in really well. You can see from the green boxes that that's where we are already compliant with what simpler recycling is. There is some work to do though, in terms of Exeter's collect glass in bring banks. It's under the simpler recycling legislation, it should be from the curbside, so I'm sure Exeter's looking at that. In terms of the plastic films, I think the only district that collects plastic films is Exeter. The rest of us need to look at that and how we're going to incorporate that. And also with cartons as well. Some collect cartons already. I know East Devon do, but I think Cambridge don't yet. So there's work to do there. And also, if you want to carry on collecting paper and card with other materials, then government's asking you to do a TEEP assessment, just so you can demonstrate you're not actually causing any problems to the materials that you're collecting. So we're well placed with simpler recycling. There's a bit to do, but actually nowhere near as much to do as some other councils and the positions they find themselves in. So I think that the Devon aligned collection has been really good in getting us to where we need to be to comply with what government's now wanting us to do. In terms of progress and targets, recycling rates this year, 54.2% in Devon and 40.7% in Torbay. In terms of residual waste, 195 kilograms per head for Devon and 252 kilograms per head for Torbay. The actual national targets is 437 kilograms per head in 2028, so we're well within that, and 287 kilograms per head in 2042, so we're well within that as well. So we're already there, and that's because we're recycling so much. In terms of household waste arisings, our own strategy is to actually get to 400 kilograms per head in 2030, and you can still see we've got work to do on this. Devon's 426 and Torbay is 425. And in terms of waste to landfill, target is 10% in 2035, 0.6% in Devon and 0 in Torbay. So again, we're well on track with that too. This just looks at the different waste collection authorities and Torbay and Devon in terms of recycling rates. And I'm not going to go through it in any detail, but you can see some step jumps where districts have changed their services, and also the orange indicates where shared savings kicked in, which we hope has also helped in terms of supporting districts to make those changes. In terms of changes to recycling rates, some have gone up, some have gone down, some have stayed the same. Nothing really significant to report, although South Hams has gone up by 2.7%, which presumably is due to your change of bringing your own service back in-house and residents getting a much more comprehensive service. Looking at the official picture in terms of nationally, East Devon District Council on NI 191, which is residual household waste per household, top of the league. So well done to East Devon. West Devon and Mid Devon also in the top 10 for that one. In terms of recycling performance, East Devon District Council 6 nationally, so again well done. And in terms of BBPI 84A, which is the kilograms per head, Exeter City 8th nationally, so well done to Exeter. So you can see that Devon authorities are doing really well nationally in terms of the performance leagues. In terms of the Waste Disposal Authority, County Council was 3rd for the residual waste, 2nd for recycling. And in terms of Torbay, Torbay's 14th in terms of the 193, which is the municipal waste sent to landfill. Again, this just shows the kilograms per head. And again, you can see that there's been some reductions, some increases. We're still above our target, and so there's still work to do on the kilograms per head. And for me, that's the key area we need to work on, is to reduce our waste arisings.
Can I just ask a question on that particular slide, the one before?
Yeah.
What it is that we've got our residual waste per head of population in Devon, and you can see all the districts there, and then Devon itself is 426, and yet none of the districts have that. So I just wonder how we've got that.
Sorry to interrupt, that includes the household waste recycling centres as well. So for the districts, it's purely what they're collecting at curbside, whereas for the Devon statistic and the Torbay statistic, it's the total waste that's collected. So it's the curbside collections and it's the household waste recycling centres added into that.
Okay, so will that skew the figures? I mean, does each district have its own recycling centre?
It does. I mean, we could look at those statistics if you want to see what it looks like in terms of each district with household waste recycling centres included as well.
No, no, it's fine. I mean, not necessarily. I don't want to make more work, but I'm just saying that that's sort of apples and pears there.
It is in terms of Devon and Torbay can be compared together, whereas obviously the districts is different because it's just curbside. So yes, you're right to pick it up. There is more being included in the Devon Torbay figures than there is just in the districts.
Just while I've got the thing, also, I don't know, it's just a presentational thing, and maybe it's just me, but I prefer that the table, what the table is to be above the table rather than below it. I find it a bit confusing going through the report which table they're talking about.
Okay.
If you see what I mean, it's just a presentation. I mean, others may not have a problem with that.
Could you just make that comment, sort of email the
I can take it off
officers on that.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
okay.
Fine. Yeah,
If you're okay, if you understand.
Yeah, we're always looking to improve. So any comments that you've got is gratefully received. So thank you.
Carry on.
Yeah, sorry. Total household waste. I'm not going to go dwell on this slide because it's pretty much repeating what you've seen before. And also, this one's quite interesting because it shows the actual differences over the years in terms of household waste growth. And you can see we dipped in 22, 23 because of particularly the dry summer, and there was no really garden waste being collected or deposited at the household waste recycling centres, and then waste grew again. And there's lots of reasons as to why waste grows. And again, I'm not going to go into this in any real detail, but it's generally around population. It's about wealth as well. If the economy is doing well, we tend to see more waste arisings. And it's also about consumption as well. But again, that's also down to economic growth, really, in terms of if people are feeling a bit more affluent, they tend to buy more, as we all know. Looking at the residual waste bin, and again, you've seen this before, but actually there's still a lot of work to do in terms of pulling recyclables out of residual waste. And we reckon we could save around 4 million had all the right recycling gone into the right bins, and those bins are out there. So it's just a question of getting residents and all of us to use them properly. In terms of materials, breakdown between the different materials that make up the recycling, you can see organic is about half, both for Torbay and for Devon, and then followed by paper and card. And then again, in terms of the changes from last year, the biggest change again was the organic waste. Much more organic waste last year because it was a much better growing season. The season does really impact on our overall recycling rates at year end. And then just moving on to fly tipping. Fly tipping, recording of fly tipping is very difficult. So in some ways we may be comparing apples with pears again, as opposed to making meaningful comparisons. But looking at the data, this is what's currently telling us that 11% growth across Devon in terms of fly tipping that was recorded, and 54% across Torbay. Ruth, I didn't know whether you wanted to comment on that at all, but that's where we are with fly tipping.
Yeah, if I may, Wendy, we've got a new enforcement team at Torbay, so I think a lot of the increase is just basically having more eyes out there to find them and then act upon them, which is why I think it's gone up so much.
And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Because I think you have to go as well, don't you? So yes, any quick questions? Thank you, Jeffrey.
Just one quick question. Do you have any data on POP being county-wide?
I'm not sure that we do. We can have a look at that because I think districts.
Well, we do at West Devon.
You record the type.
We're getting, well, I get regular updates from Dale. But I just think it would be great for the group to understand, since the introduction of the POP legislation and residents having to travel long distances once they've gone to the recycling centre to find out they've got to go, in our case, Tavistock to Oakhampton to take their furniture. I was concerned in West Devon that we were going to have an increase in POP fly tipping. There are 1 or 2 a month, basically, but in West Devon. But it'd be interesting to see how it is across the county.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that.
I was going to ask about the effects of POP, because I know in Exeter we had 2 recycling centres and only 1 is allowed to now take it, and it might be useful just to compare the pre-POP and the post-POP, sort of to see if there's a difference in the total amount being going into those recycling centres, whether that's feasible or not.
We can certainly look at that.
Any other questions? Because we have one more item. Yes.
Yes, sorry, and it's not really necessarily about this, but I am slightly concerned that this is the Devon Authority Strategic Waste Committee, and there is nothing on here about LGR at all, and what the implications are to Devon. You know, I mean, it's all been very interesting, but actually that is the elephant in the room here. There is going to be massive changes to everything. How's it going to work? Are we going out to, you know, we're all here, we've got the county here, the districts here. You know, this is the forum which we should be discussing.
Can I suggest that it's because obviously we'll, I think that we'll have more news in November, won't we? That we look at this in the February meeting, because we don't know at the moment. And
well, I'm
really short.
Yeah.
So can I suggest that we actually have it as an agenda item for February? Is that
okay.
acceptable?
Well, we'll take it forward at county separately then, because that's too late. I mean, you know, you got to get ahead of the curve here, and we're not. We're right behind the curve, and it's going to make everything.
What are you proposing?
Well, I'm proposing that we should be this forum and this meeting should be discussing the implications of LGR and how that's going to affect the district. You know, what are our plans? So for example, if it's 2 unitaries or 1 unitary, what are we going to do? We've got 8 different collection regimes, 8 different organisations. How are we going to amalgamate that into 1, 2 or 3?
We can't do anything in this particular meeting now.
No, I get that.
Why I'm proposing that we actually have an agenda item in February.
Well, February's a long way away.
Well, are you proposing that we have another meeting in the interim?
I think we should, yeah.
Right, I'm going to look at officers here.
I can do I mean, with regards to calling a special meeting, you as chair can call it, or it's a certain number of the committee members, it's 4 or 5. Obviously, I don't know what those officers.
I think from our view, and until we actually know what the options are going to be, it's really difficult to, we could be looking at so many different options.
I'm going to ask, thank you for that, yeah, that's a good point. Jeff?
Because we're not a decision maker, can we make it into a workshop following when we know what, if it's going to be, which format it's the unit is going to take, and then we can then discuss it. Now, within my council, we're discussing it all the time. Now, it's the big elephant in the room, but until we know how it's going, who's going to take over, there is now. It's very difficult, and we're going through now for East Devon. We're going through making our waste and recycling into a LATCO at the same time. So it's a big elephant at the moment.
Thank you, Jeff. I've got, when did you want to respond to that, or wait for Jackie to come in?
Are you happy if I respond, Jackie? Just to say that once we know, we would welcome having lots of workshops to work together to actually produce what we need to do in terms of bringing services together. But until we know, it's difficult to know what we would be talking about, because it's, you know, we won't know what options we should be looking at in more detail. But once we know, absolutely agree with you. Yes, we should definitely be working together as best we can to get the best for Devon's residents.
Jackie?
I think a workshop, especially a convened workshop, might be helpful to actually inform us in terms of, as any of us as decision makers, about which what it's going to look like. So we could actually kind of come up with some sort of, you know, future scenarios of the different options, because we know the ones that are probably likely to be put through to government in November. So at least I mean, because a lot of the time it's a chicken and egg, and if we don't get the opportunity to understand the implications, it might help people make their choices.
Yes.
I support the proposal to have a workshop interim meeting, because we're not going to know until the middle of next year anyway. So we can't leave it till then. And as Councillor Brazil says, we are a strategic waste group, and we should be looking at. I know we don't have a magic crystal ball, but I think we need to be making some progress on where we might go.
Thank you. Can I suggest then that you leave it with me, the Deputy Chair, and the officers to come up with a proposal for a workshop or workshops. Is that okay? Yeah, in the interim before the next meeting in February. Everybody happy with that? Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Councillor.
I'm not happy. What's the point? What is the point until we know what's happening? You're just giving officers and members like me coming down from North Devon, travelling all over for what purpose? And officers will be running around looking at various options that may or may not happen. It's been I mean, it is a big issue, this, but it's been amazing to me at Torridge and even at parish and town councils, how everybody's running around like scalded cocks over this issue. It'll happen. We know Unifi's coming in. We know what the county council want to do the same, just change the name to Unitary. We know what the Torridge and some of the districts want to do. We know what Plymouth want. We know what Exeter wants. But until we know which one's going to be chosen, which will be the government doing it, not us, how can you start discussing how we're going to amalgamate the waste services and recycling? It's just ridiculous.
If I may just if I may just respond, I do think that it's useful for us to kind of at least try and evaluate what the different options that are on the table at the moment might look like if we were to divvy up waste services. I think actually, because we actually know a lot in this room about how the waste services work, and if it starts to be differently managed, then we can actually at least speculate. And certainly the work that we did in South Hams a few years ago when we brought the services back in house, I think we got quite a good understanding of how you can do that evaluation. And we've just been through a whole pile of really useful information as well. So I don't think it has to be a really lengthy workshop, but I think it would be really useful for us to understand the comparative benefits of different unitary options.
Councillor Williams, did you want to make a comment?
Not really at all. It's we've been talking about suppositions of the LGR now for a long time. Where I've gone in life until I know what I'm dealing with. You can waste a lot of time, waste a lot of what ifs. I'd rather concentrate on the work that we can do now, and then when LGR comes in, we can then set plans and all work together to a common end.
Thank you. So we'll still look at the possibility of having a workshop, since we have got a number of members here who are supporting that. So if you leave it with me and the chair and officers, we'll come back to you. Okay. Thank you. And so we're now going to go on to the final agenda item with Bobby. I think sorry, if she needs 20 minutes roughly, and we want 5 minutes of questions, it does mean that we'll be going on to about 4:20. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll try and keep it quick. Right, thank you for letting me present. I am a senior waste management officer within the Devon County Council waste management team. I sit in Annette's team. And, I'm basically going to talk briefly about our community action group project. So I'm going to say what is CAG Devon. I'm going to talk about the monitoring and evaluation. That will meet the delivery team. What our drivers for our work are, our theory of change and expansion and collaboration. Sounds like a lot, but I will try and go through quickly for you. So what is CAG Devon? Hopefully quite a few of you know what CAG Devon is, but CAG stands for Community Action Groups. It was set up as a trial in 2016 in Tiverton specifically to look at how we could stimulate more action within a particular area around waste reduction and reuse, sort of recycling, sharing, repairing, things like that. And CAG Devon has grown, and I'll tell you more about that through the next few slides. But fundamentally, what CAG Devon is about is providing grassroots community action. So providing support to help those groups get up and started, help with things like fundraising, small grants, insurance, policies, procedures, that sort of basic governance of running a group to help make sure that they are working well. Also support media and publicity. The training and skill shares is a really important part of the work that CAG Devon provide. So it's helping groups to collaborate and to share ideas and to learn from each other, doing that very important piece of networking. And the training helps the groups to operate safely, really, within their community. So a repair cafe, we make sure that people are trained in portable appliance testing, that the bike repair mechanics are operating to a certain level. We make sure that they have access to safeguarding training, good risk assessments, that sort of health and safety side of things. And there's a lot of impact monitoring as well, which I'll touch on again later. And as I mentioned already, that inspiration, that sort of networking and inspiration is really important among the community sector. I should also point out that Devon County Council, although we fund this work, right from the very start, we made a choice to not be like a really obvious partner, because actually this isn't about us helicoptering in and telling groups what to do. It's very much about supporting community groups to do what is important in their area. So really supporting that community action, that energy. So we recruited, or under contract, we have Resource Futures delivering this work. They've got a very long history in delivering this kind of work. And I'm the contract manager, and then we have a delivery team as well on the Resource Futures side. And basically they've been operating since the project started, so they've run the successive contracts. So just to give you an idea of the kind of groups that are covered, so this is very much from a waste perspective. You can see there's a whole long list there. It's all sorts: food, surplus cafes, community cooking, community fridges, larders, repair cafes, libraries of things, clothes swaps, jumble trails, litter picking, beach, all of that. You can see the loads there, absolutely loads going on. What's also really interesting about all these community groups is that they don't just sit within nice little waste sectors. They quite clearly and quite obviously do a lot more work than that in their local areas. We find a lot of them also do nature and biodiversity. They're a lot more groups are beginning to do water related activities and sustainable travel. And we're very aware how these groups really are that broader sustainability. So although we have a waste focus, we have realised that these groups are doing so much more in their local communities. And this is just a little sort of timeline. So back in 2016, it was this trial project. It was a small project, very small. But in 2017, 2018, we just kind of expanded it to Mid Devon and Teignbridge. No extra money, that was just expanding the area that they were covering. So there's a slight shift in how we deliver that project as well. So it wasn't quite so intensive as it was in the sort of Tiverton area. It became a slightly lighter touch. We then operated at that level for quite some time, just in the Teignbridge and Mid Devon area. But then I'm really pleased that wider remit that we were talking about, how community groups do operate across lots of different areas. We managed to also get some funding from public health and from the Devon Climate Emergency Team. So that took us up in 2023, which meant we could then offer a service and support across the whole of Devon, but it also allowed us to recognise that broader work that these groups are doing. So it's not just about waste anymore. It is that wider sort of climate emergency and resilience piece of work. We have actually, with the extra funding, meant that they could employ an extra person, which was great. So there's but it is a light touch of support now. So it's not that in-depth community work which we had back in the beginning, but it is really really working in our communities. In 2024, I'm pleased to say East Devon District Council decided to fund their own CAG Devon person absolutely in their area, and that is reaping reward. We're seeing a distinct raise in number of groups in that area, and they've just agreed to do a bit more as well, it's to say. And then there in 2025, we also now have a partnership with Libraries, Libraries Unlimited. I will talk about that at the end of the presentation though. I just wanted to add in a little line there that just shows the growth in the number of groups that are part of the CAG Devon network. And you can see how it's really taking off. So back in the beginning, literally just a handful of groups, 8 groups, I think. And now we're at, well, it was 64 last time I looked, but every time I look, it's changed. And I must say that joining CAG Devon, it is free. It's not a charged thing. It's about bringing groups together and supporting them and really helping to shine a light on the amazing work that all these community groups do. And by all means, CAG doesn't cover all groups. I'm thinking of Sustainable South Hams, who we work with as well. But we are working increasingly with more and more of these groups to try and shine a light on the amazing work that's happening at this grassroots level. You can look up the groups in your area. There is a map, a little interactive map on the CAG Devon website. You can select the different topics, and it's, there's a link on this presentation, so you'll be able to go and look at it. Down the side, there's a scrolly bit where you can click on the different groups, see what they're up to. So I mentioned that monitoring and evaluation is a really important part of the work we do. This isn't about what CAG does. It's not about the CAG Devon. It's about what all the groups are doing. So again, it's shining a light on the amazing work that these groups are doing collectively. Getting data out of community groups is a little bit like squeezing blood out of a stone though, because they like to do the event and then they don't really want to return data very often. But by building a relationship with these groups and offering them a lot of support in terms of free training and small grants, they're much more willing to give us their data. And then that data means that we can share that to yourselves and we can show that return that we're getting from our work. One of the reasons that Resource Futures actually have this have won this contract successive times is because they do have a resource community impact tool. They're currently revamping it actually, but it has been really helpful to help us try and picture and sort of get some numbers and data against this work, because really a lot of it is quite hidden in communities and we're really trying to highlight the work. So they produce one of these infographics every year and you can see how it has changed and improved. Conscious of time, so unfortunately I won't go into more detail. This is the delivery team. I thought I mentioned it as well. It's lovely to put a name to a face. If you ever get to meet these guys, they're really passionate about their work. Helen Vines is our CAG Devon project manager, so I regularly meet with her. And Molly. Molly is our second person who supports Helen in delivery of this work. And the relationships and the trust and the work they do with these community groups is really important. Then in East Devon, we now also have Caroline, who's doing some fantastic work in the East Devon area as well. And actually, what's really lovely is that now there's more of them. When it was just Helen, it was harder work for her, but now she's got more people who can bounce around ideas more, you know, we can do and can deliver more, definitely. And interestingly, Somerset also set up a Somerset CAG, and that's also helped because there's been a lot of crossover and sharing of resources and information and ideas, which has been great. So I won't go through the drivers for our work because I think you probably know all of them, and I'm conscious of short of time, but simply to say that, you know we need to get at least supporting our communities to shift their behaviour. You know, our recycling systems are in place. We need to get more people to use them, but more importantly, we need to get them to move up the waste hierarchy to get to the waste reduction, the reuse, the repair. We need to see that shift in behaviour. So the theory of change, I like to put the slide in pretty much all of my presentations these days, and why community groups are so important. There is this real misconception that we all hold quite often, that people don't think other people care as much, but actually an awful lot of people do care, but they're a bit scared to take action or to say anything. And it's called the value perception gap. So it's really important that we try to address this value perception gap and try to help people realise that people do care. And one of the ways you help with that is to help support these groups to be taking action in their local communities, because then people can see people taking action, they start to feel more confident about taking action themselves. And those small actions, you know, if they get a good response, then, you know, they're more likely to take more actions, and they start to feel part of something bigger. And these key people are, you know, our sort of community group members. They're our sort of ambassadors. They are amplifying our messages for us. So as a council, you really want to support these people who are going to be helping you get that message out, especially as an awful lot of people receive the message far better from their peers and from their friends and their family than they do from the council. So we really want to be sort of nurturing those relationships. And we often find a sort of ripple effect with this kind of work as well. You know, that you get sort of one repair cafe set up, and then, you know, another repair cafe sets up because they saw how good the other one was in the village next door. And we have seen this huge growth in repair cafes and other activities. And I really also try to make this point is that, you know, these projects aren't just about being green. They are place-based and people-focused. They really do bring people together. I actually volunteer myself in my spare time in a repair cafe, and it is so rewarding. It is fantastic. And, you know, to see the smiles on people's faces really makes it worth it. There's a lot of skill sharing, a lot of learning of new skills happening in these different projects across the county. They do improve well-being because you see people coming in and getting help from their neighbours and from their other fellow community members. They also love to share their skills. There's a lot of retired folk, or not even just retired folk, others as well, who are sharing those skills, and they get a huge amount from doing that. As I mentioned earlier, you get the sort of ripple effect. So communities, when they set up these projects, actually inspire other communities to take these actions as well. And some of these little groups do turn and grow and turn into small businesses as well. So, you know, it's great to support them. And also it supports that lifelong learning. So we know that some of these behaviours really are, you know, down to not having the right cooking skills or not having, you know, to sew. Well, a lot of these projects are helping to address those areas. So I put in a little slide about the 5 ways to wellbeing. So this is why Public Health are partly funding this project now, because they can see how these community action groups are helping people to be connected, to be active, to take notice, to keep learning, and to give to their communities. So it's really helping on that side. And the social impact, we always do a little survey of all the volunteers that are taking part. And we find that this helps to sort of to provide that sort of evidence to the public health's involvement. So in terms of the volunteers who are helping, they might just be coming once a month to help at a repair cafe, or they might be helping with a community fridge. But the reasons that they're doing it is like 96% are doing it because they want to support their local community. 67% concern about their environmental issues. 60% want to give something back. 56%, you know, are meeting new people, and 53% are having fun doing it, which is nice. And as a result, 88% of these people are feeling better connected to their communities. 76% are having fun and enjoying them, actually enjoying themselves when they're there. They're meeting new friends. You know, there is also an impact on the behaviour. I want it to be more than 32%, but it does help to change their behaviour around these areas, but that will grow over time. If you want to know a bit more in terms of that qualitative side of things, we actually did a storytelling project a couple of years ago now, but a deep dive, some really lovely stories, understanding why people volunteer in their groups, and they're on the CAG Devon website. So if you have time, please do read them. Now, I just wanted to also talk about the really exciting project. Together for Tomorrow project is the Libraries Unlimited and CAG Devon. So Resource Futures and Libraries Unlimited, they have put in a joint bid. They have been successful and won £1.5 million from the National Lottery. And that is to help the libraries to become sort of local sustainability hubs. And also to strengthen the capacity within the existing CAG groups and to help more groups to develop. And really, it's all about trying to get more people doing literally more stuff. It's really getting that action in those local communities. And that's fantastic that it's a 5-year project. The picture on the side is Laura, very lovely smiley face. She's just literally started, and it will be the CAG Devon project lead on that side. There is also a libraries person also who will be working very closely with her, Rosie McIver, I believe her name is. And so this has really just started, this project. It will start with some research, and what's really lovely about the project is it is also going to be working with community groups. So the likes of Sustainable South Hams will be engaged in helping the research and delivery of some of these elements of these projects. I'd like to share this slide as well, just to show this is the investment. So the blue across the bottom is our Devon County Council's part of making the CAG Devon project work. And you can see that in 23-24, that's where we got additional funding from Public Health and Devon Climate Emergency. And then the blue, the light blue, is East Devon District Council. I need to update it because I haven't got the latest bit with their, they've just decided to extend. And then the sort of pinky cerise colour is the libraries project. And the important thing about this slide is showing how that investment has been a seed funding, a much bigger investment, and how we've drawn in that much more funding, because that lottery project and those other things wouldn't happen without this kind of ongoing work, which are creating that conditions for change and that interest in these areas. So I'm really excited by that, because I think it really shows that we're getting good return on investment for our investment money there. And just really quickly also, as I know short time, to say, please, if you want to follow what CAG Devon are up to, sign up to the CAG Devon newsletter so you can know what's going on. There's a link there. It's on the bottom of their website. And also, I should really put a highlight in here. Every year, CAG Devon runs a Skillshare event. So the Skillshare event this year is in Newton Abbot. It's a fantastic event. About 80 people arrived, came along last year, and it's a lot of community groups sharing and learning together. There's always great food, which is all made from surplus food, which is fantastic, delivered by one of the projects usually. If you have time to come along, please do. It's a really inspiring day, and it's always like the highlight of the year after all the hard work. So by all means, please do sign up. We'd really welcome seeing you guys there. I think that was my last slide. Yes, so very quick.
Thank you very much, Bobby. That's lovely, and congratulations on that amazing lottery success.
Oh, yeah.
Great news. Any questions? Anybody? No? I've got a couple. Just wondering with whether you have any links with the community initiatives, extra community initiatives that funds the community builders.
Not formal links, no. No, we don't have, and I mean, certainly Helen and the team will know them, and they will be talking to them in terms of networking. We don't have any sort of formal links, particularly at this point in time. But if there are opportunities, then absolutely happy to look at them.
Okay, lovely, thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, using volunteers for things like this, absolutely fantastic. It helps to offset the lack of funding we're getting from government now. And you say you're planting the seed, which is great. Now it does need someone to do the planting, but then once it grows, then people are not inventing the wheel everywhere. Now they can copy and take good examples and move on. And we're doing it in all areas at the moment. And this is fantastic news. Thank you.
Yeah, could I ask you to say how you've managed to fund your own person, CAG person, and how many hours a week are they doing? What sort of contract have you got them?
I don't know.
I can answer, I can answer that.
But
Got you out there.
It was arm twisting.
All right,
I
Bobby.
Yeah, no, I've actually got the figures. I believe it's 3 days a week, a 0.6 of an FTE. And I'm just saying, well, look, it's £45,000 for 12 months. And that includes some small grants monies as well. And it's being delivered via the Devon County Council contract, so sort of a subcontract element of it. You know, we're just expanding the work we do in supporting these guys.
Well, thank you. Yes, I've got Jeffrey and then Julian.
Thank you very much. Really interesting report. I just have a question. I run Tidy Tavy, which we've just celebrated our 14th year of litter picking, community litter picking on the first Saturday of every month in the Tavistock area. How can CAG help litter pick groups in other districts and areas? Can you fund equipment like one litter picker is £15? The hoops are £10 each. So for small groups, we've had support from local with Lions and West Devon Borough Council. But how can you do it, and how can we forward people to you if you can help?
Okay, so CAG Devon can help specifically with a small grant, because they do small grants. So once groups are members, and it's free to be a member, you can apply for a grant. There's 2 rounds a year usually, and it's up to £300. So absolutely, you could join and apply for a grant for that sort of money. And also, interesting, litter is an area we were actually really keen to do a bit more work, linking with our Clean Devon work, and we are talking at the moment about running a collaborate where we get groups that are doing litter picking together so that they can learn and inspire each other and find new ways of working.
Thank you for that, and don't forget it's about health and well-being as well, and mental health. That when people are litter picking, it is good for their, and then they're getting exercise. The other point is that we in Tavistock, we don't have a formalised group. There's another councillor and I run it and have done for 14 years, but we don't have a bank account. Would a group have to have a bank account? And or could you actually supply equipment? This is how we've done it through with our donations, with tabards and things like that, is that they've been given to us.
So CAG Devon, one of the things they do is provide support and advice to groups like that. So a lot of groups start like that without anything, and CAG Devon will help you to decide what's the best route for you. And every group's different. So it might be that you are happy as you are and don't want to change, but we do encourage groups to become more formal groups and have a bank account, because obviously if we're going to give you a grant, we need to know where it's going. Some groups do operate under the sort of under the town and parish councils, and you know we're very keen and actually planning to do more work with town and parish councils as well, particularly around litter. That's a good area there. So yes, we could help you with that. That's specifically the kind of expertise that Helen and Molly and Caroline can help you with. So if you want to give me your contact details before you go, I will put you in contact with Helen. Okay.
Julian.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Bobby. I mean, it's fantastic work, and partnership work is definitely the way forward. And you say it costs 45,000 for the officer in East Devon, but it's obviously had a fantastically positive results in that. Is there any way that we've monetarized that? You know, can we work out that by spending 45,000, actually what they're doing is they're saving so much on landfill, blah blah blah.
Oh, sort of return on investment, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I think if we go back to find my slides on, not showing. Okay, for some reason it's not showing there. Basically, the resource community impact tool that I mentioned, that I believe does have a return on investment function within it. And certainly we can tell you that the number of volunteer hours and the value that notional value that has, we can also work out the sort of value of savings from things being repaired and not having to buy new again. So yes, we can put some figures to that. It will always be an underestimate though, because you know we can't capture everything. I mean, the well-being side, very hard to capture. But it's one of the benefits of now this new lottery project money, because it's helping us to put, or I say us, resource futures, to put more work into developing resource CIT, their impact tool, because it's actually a really old piece of work they did a long time ago, and it needs updating. A lot of the sort of assumptions behind it need updating. So with the additional funding coming in, that's going to help them develop that. And we will be particularly interested in trying to capture more of that well-being side as well. So it's a work in progress, that.
I just think it's really useful when, but around budget time, if people understand that sometimes, you know, the investor save is well worth it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was the just like on my actual slide here, the value of volunteer time was 657,000. You know, so
yeah. No, I mean, you don't need to persuade me.
No, I know. No, I know. But you know, those figures are there, and we certainly don't spend that much money on it. So yeah, so we can make more of a case, and we can continue to build that. And this is what this is doing, is helping us to build that evidence about what these amazing grassroots groups are doing.
Thank you very much, Bobby. That's really helpful. Any more questions? No. Right. Well, that's the end of our meeting. I don't think we formally have any. We've got dates of future meetings at the end of the agenda. So the next meeting is on the 25th of February, but we are going to be looking at this workshop in the interim. We've also got the 3rd of June 2026, 21st of October and 3rd of February 2027. One thing that Jackie did mention to me when we were raising the flag for Recycling Week, what was great about that flag, lovely green flag with the recycling logo in blue, was that it was made out of recycled green plastic bottles. It's lovely, actually. So that's a good circular economy for you. What? Sorry. But one thing that Jackie mentioned to me, and I thought I'd said I'd bring it up in the meeting today, was that she thought it might be interesting to have a visit to the Exeter's materials reclamation facility, and also coupled with a visit, which is just down the road, to the energy from waste plant. So, sorry, you've been, so you wouldn't want to go again. It was just something that we thought we could look into if you were interested. You might even want to have a go on the belt, where you can separate all the lovely recycled goodies in Exeter, because we chuck everything into a green bin, so you then have to hand separate it. And I won't go into the sorts of things that I found when I spent an hour on it. Yes, it was very interesting personal